Hello everyone, today's video will be entitled Military Hollywood History Number 9. Okay, we're going to focus in on Lenny Bruce, the stand-up comedian, social engineering fellow from Long Island, New York. Lenny Bruce. And we're going to touch on River Phoenix, who was born in Oregon but died in West Hollywood, down the hillside from where Lenny Bruce died. I'll be as specific as I can be. Lenny Bruce was killed at 8825 Hollywood Boulevard. That's right, I said Hollywood Boulevard. That's known for the Hollywood Star Hall of Fame, Walk of Fame, from the Dolby Theater where they just had the Academy Awards. Yeah, if you continue west on Hollywood Boulevard, it actually, when it crosses over Laurel Canyon Boulevard, it kicks up into the hillside and there are no more businesses. It all goes residential. It's a narrow road. It should be not called a boulevard, but they continue to use that word boulevard despite the fact that it's more of a bicycle lane. No center line, and the homes are on the side of a cliff, virtually. No sidewalks, of course, as is consistent with all these military developed pacification control areas. It works its way and it worms its way up the hill, eventually to Wonderland Avenue and the Disney Underground Studios, 100,000 square feet at 8935 Wonderland Avenue, just a couple hundred yards away from where they had that horrible Wonderland murders back in 1981 that killed 4 people, bludgeoned to death with hammers or pipes. Anyway, Lenny Bruce's road eventually goes there. He's about halfway up the hill. He has a magnificent view of Los Angeles. He's directly above where the Vipers Club is. The Vipers Club is a nightclub for acts. The Viper Room, I guess it's called, the Viper Room. It's located at Sunset Boulevard at 8852 Sunset Boulevard. It's directly down the hillside from where Lenny Bruce was killed. Now, we're talking about Jewish people here. We're talking about Lenny Bruce, not his real name. We're going to be talking about River Phoenix, not his real name. All right, so let's get at it. So let's start with Lenny Bruce. He was murdered in his home at 8825 Hollywood Boulevard at age 40. That's kind of young. His career was shorter than you think it was. Anyway, he was killed in his home on August 3rd, 1966. That's a Wednesday. He was found dead in his bathroom with his pants down and or naked. We can't really tell because it looks like the crime scene was tampered with. Lenny Bruce had drug paraphernalia nearby, which includes syringes. That's not a surprise, people. That's pretty standard. It doesn't necessarily mean that he overdosed himself. Maybe someone else did. Anyway, the point is that he's dead as a doornail on his bathroom floor, August 3rd, 1966, in the Hollywood Hills, which is, at that time, it was an unincorporated area of Hollywood. There was a city of Hollywood. There was a city of Los Angeles. There was not a city of West Hollywood at this time. That didn't happen until 1984. So that explains why Ed Durston was questioned by the Los Angeles County sheriffs and given 2 polygraphs, and he was never interviewed by the Los Angeles Municipal Police Department or the Hollywood Police Department, because 1211 North Horn Avenue, where Diane Linklater was murdered and face planted by being tossed out of her 6th floor Shoreham Tower apartment, and where Connie Monte was murdered in a acute barbiturate poisoning, according to Thomas Noguchi, at 1211 North Horn Avenue. That comes under the jurisdiction of the county. It's an unincorporated area of Los Angeles County, and that explains why the Sheriff's Department investigated Jack Cassidy's murder, Sal Minio's murder, Diane Linklater's murder, Connie Monte's murder, and Lenny Bruce's murder, because they all died in West Hollywood, and they all died before 1984. So Lenny Bruce killed at August 3rd, 1966, age 40, at 8825 Hollywood Boulevard. You can Google it. That home is virtually impossible to find in real life because it's very tucked away, up a long driveway, and it's not visible from the street. I don't think you get any trick-or-treaters at Hollywood on Halloween at this house. You should know that down the hill directly is the Viper Room. This is where River Phoenix was murdered at age 23. That was October 31st, 1993. He was 23 years old. And he was the eldest of 5 brothers and sisters. He had 3 sisters, and he had Joaquin Phoenix, his younger brother. Joaquin Phoenix, who we all know. They were all Jewish. Their mother was Jewish, from the Bronx, New York. Jewish woman from the Bronx, New York. She had 5 children, all 5 of them in the Hollywood entertainment business. Now, you can just forget about the idea that talent is what brings you to Hollywood. Oh no, that's factually false, because you can't have 5 out of 5 children all get employment in Hollywood when it's based on talent. There's no chance mathematically that 100% of your family is going to be talented enough to get into the record business, the music business, the television and film business. You have to be selected, okay? That's why you have all these friends and family members. That's why the children of the parents go into the business, because they're all part of the cult. It is a Hollywood cult. I did a video on that, Screen Actors Guild. It is a cult. That's why they all agree about COVID. They all agree about face diapers. They all agree about whatever the centralized authorities tell them to do. And they're actors, and you should never believe a single thing that anybody that's associated with Hollywood says. Don't ever believe anything they say, whether you like it or not. Don't believe it. They're acting, and they're getting paid. If you see them in the public forum, they are getting paid. Lenny Bruce. All right, so let's go back to the beginning with Lenny Bruce. He's our main man today. His real name is Leonard Alfred Schneider. All right, and he was born on Long Island. Now, he was born at Manila, Long Island. However, that's not where he grew up. He grew up in Belmore, which is about 15 miles to the east of the John F. Kennedy Airport, JFK Airport on Long Island. So about 15 miles to the east of the JFK Airport, you will find the little hamlet of Belmore. And this is where Lenny Bruce grew up. His name being Leonard Schneider, Leonard Alfred Schneider. He was that name until he was born October 13th, 1925. At age 22, he changed his last name to Bruce. He was 22 years old, and that would be in 1947, he became Lenny Bruce. But before that, he was Leonard Alfred Schneider. Anyway, his stage name is Lenny Bruce. That's the point. He's known to be an American stand-up comedian, social critic, satirist, and anchor. He's also known to use a lot of profanity and foul words in his act, which got him arrested a few times and convicted of indecency or obscenity charges. And what you should know is that he was testing our First Amendment rights of free speech, which I think we all know we don't have. He was born Jewish, and like I said, his mother's name is Sally Marr. Her legal name became Sadie Schneider because she married his father, whose name was Alfred. What was the name of his father? Okay. His parents divorced before he was 10 years old, and they've sort of deleted his father from the history of Lenny Bruce. His father's name was Myron Schneider. He went by Mickey. Myron Schneider was born in England, and he married Sally Marr, who was a performer and dancer herself. That's what got Lenny Bruce created, was his mother. His mother nurtured him. And like I said, the father went bye-bye at age 10, so he's not in the picture anymore. You should know that Lenny Bruce, his profile is almost identical to Harvey Milk, another Jewish man from Long Island, who went into the United States Navy, then got tossed out of the Navy because of homosexuality allegations. In the case of Harvey Milk, he returned to Long Island. In the case of Leonard Schneider, he dressed in drag and performed comedy bits for the sailors at sea. And this led to rumors that he was a homosexual. The Navy had him see a psychologist. He told him he had homosexual tendencies because he didn't like being on ships at sea for long periods. And so they discharged Leonard Schneider, in a rather unusual way. In other words, he got a Section 8, but it was all very complimentary. He then joined the Merchant Marines. He was discharged under honorable conditions by reason of unsuitability for naval service. That's a little different than Harvey Milk, who, by the way, came out to San Francisco, got immediately set up with his own camera shop on Castro Street, then was murdered 4.5 years later by supposedly Dan White at City Hall in San Francisco, and canonized as a homosexual man, the first openly gay man in San Francisco. You know what? I don't even know if he was gay. It's entirely possible that Harvey Milk wasn't gay, because it looks like he's a professional crisis actor for CIA. Remember, that all went down when the Jim Jones People's Temple mass murder happened in British Guiana. That was the same week that Harvey Milk and George Moscone were killed in CIA San Francisco. And they're all actors. They're all CIA crisis actors. And that includes Diane Goldman Feinstein. She's a complete actress. You know, a Jewish girl who attends Roman Catholic parochial school, the Convent of the Sacred Heart, at 2222 Broadway. I'd call that acting. That's what I call that. Anyway, during the Korean War, Lenny Bruce served in the United States Merchant Marines, ferrying troops from the United States to Europe and back, even though it was during the Korean War era, I should say. Not during the war, but during the era. Anyway, Lenny Bruce, of course, was introduced to Hugh Hefner's Playboy Penthouse television show in 1959. That's clandestine service, people. In other words, his Navy background and his honorable discharge from the Navy and his dealing with psychologists and the fact that he's Jewish from New York area guaranteed his entry into Hollywood. Guaranteed. As a social engineer. That was the whole point. That's the only reason you'd possibly appear on the Hugh Hefner Playboy Club channel called Penthouse. That's why Roman Polanski and Sharon Tate's cocktail party, which you think was a wedding reception, on a Friday afternoon was held at the Playboy Club in London, 2 blocks from where Peter Sellers was murdered, 3 blocks from where Cass Elliot, a Jewish girl, was murdered, her real name being Ellen Naomi Cohen. She was murdered 3 blocks from the Playboy Club in London, where Roman Polanski and Sharon Tate in 1968 in January had a fake wedding and a fake wedding reception. There was never any wedding ceremony, and there is no wedding paperwork either. So don't get punked on the Sharon Tate's married to Roman Polanski. Only for television, only for newspapers, only for magazines, only to punk you. That was a fake marriage. And Lenny Bruce didn't get into Hugh Hefner's television show because he was a talented comedian, because at that time he was not a talented comedian. All right. After a short period, he came out allegedly to California to live with his father. Then Lenny Bruce returned back to New York City after being discharged from the Merchant Marines. He attempted to perfect his comedian act in New York, where he was completely unsuccessful because there's so many comedians and there's lots of nightclubs in New York, but Lenny Bruce did not appear successful in New York. So he returned out to California along with his mother, and they formed a little act with a stripper that he met. Lenny Bruce met a nude dancing girl who he fell in love with, and she and his mother and himself came out to California. California is the place you ought to be, so they loaded up the truck and they moved to Beverly Hills, that is, Hollywood Hills. All right, so he recorded his first solo album with Fantasy Records out of Berkeley, California. We all know Berkeley is CIA all the way. University of California, Berkeley. This is where the Hare Krishnas had a temple. This is where the People's Temple had a temple. This is near the Church of Synanon. This is where we had the fake Vietnam protests against conscription, staged for television. Berkeley, and this is Fantasy Records. This is where Carlos Santana came out of, who was booked as a client of Bill Graham, who came out of the Bronx, New York. Wolf Gerjonka. See, there's this tremendous Jewish, the Bronx, San Francisco, Berkeley, Hollywood. Sand Hill Road. If you're a banker or you're a comedian or you're an actor, you go from the Bronx to Manhattan to San Francisco to Hollywood Way. There's just like no exceptions to the rule. We wouldn't be talking about you if it weren't for that. And we can include Mort Sahl on this journey too. Mort Sahl was a Canadian-born comedian who looks a lot like Lenny Bruce. And he has a similar background. But Harvey Milk and Lenny Bruce came out of Long Island and ended up in San Francisco. Lenny Bruce performed in San Francisco quite a bit, was arrested in San Francisco for obscenity on stage. And I believe he used the word, I'm not going to say it. It doesn't seem like such a bad word, but anyway, I'm not going to use the word that was used. It was called blue material. And anyway, Lenny Bruce ended up down in Hollywood Way performing at the nightclubs along Sunset Boulevard. Now, you should know that there were quite a few nightclubs on Sunset Boulevard, and they were owned really by two people, okay? You're not going to believe this. And these two people are associated with the CIA, okay? And these nightclubs were mostly created in the late 1950s, early 1960s, just in time for the Vietnam War. These nightclubs were open. The Whiskey A Go-Go, of course. You know, I'm going to name some names here. Elmer Valentine, okay? Elmer Valentine opened quite a few nightclubs on Sunset Boulevard. He has an Army airborne background. When he was discharged from the United States Army, he bounced around a little bit in Los Angeles and became the co-owner of PJ's, a successful West Hollywood restaurant nightclub. He then sold that PJ's and took a trip to Europe. When he went to France, he visited a discotheque that was named Le Whiskey A Go-Go, and it was very popular in Paris, so he returned to Hollywood and opened a string of nightclubs there, namely the Whiskey A Go-Go, which he opened, I believe, in 1964. And he also opened some other nightclubs with the help of Lou Adler and other Hollywood Jewish people. Lou Adler is Jewish, and who are in the records business. And so he always could book the record guests of the Byrds, the Doors, the Kinks, the Who's, the Buffalo Springfield, Neil Young, Tom Petty, the Ramones, the New York Dolls, Oingo Boingo, Blondie. He could get all those acts, you know, Van Halen, Guns N' Roses, Motley Crue, Gene Simmons would always appear on stage in one of these nightclubs that was owned by CIA, Elmer Valentine. And it's more than just one place. He opened the Whiskey A Go-Go, the Roxy Theater, and the Rainbow Bar and Grill. Okay? And they're all along Sunset Boulevard. And the other nightclubs there are even more. At least 6 nightclubs were owned by Eddie Nash. Eddie Nash, who's about the same age as Elmer Valentine. Eddie Nash came from Jerusalem. and he's an Orthodox Christian Jewish man, and he's from Jerusalem, and he comes out to Hollywood, according to the story, with $7 in his wallet, but the CIA and Mossad in his bank, and he opens up many bars and dance clubs. I'll give you some names: the Paradise Club, the Seven Seas, Alibaba's, the Kit Kat Strip Club, nude dancing, the Sold Out clubs in Hollywood, the Odyssey, the Starwood Club, PJ's. He's partners with Elmer Valentine. Eddie Nash, you may know, was implicated in the murders of 4 people at Wonderland Avenue near the Disney Underground Air Force facility. There were 5 people bludgeoned, 4 of them died. Eddie Nash was the one who had motive, means, and opportunity. He did not have an alibi, and he was acquitted of murdering the 4 people, despite the fact there was enormous amount of evidence that implicated Eddie Nash. But that's not different than O.J. Simpson. Wasn't there a lot of evidence that made O.J. Simpson look guilty? And he was acquitted of double homicide. Well, Eddie Nash was acquitted of 4 homicides, and they blamed it all on, the porn star, John Holmes, right? Who was also acquitted. So you should know, no one was actually convicted of the murder of 4 people in the Hollywood Hills, which is directly above where Lenny Bruce lived. Lenny Bruce lived down the hill, about halfway down the hill from the Wonderland murder site. Anyway, what I'm trying to tell you is Lenny Bruce had to know Eddie Nash. He had to know Elmer Valentine, because that is about a dozen nightclubs that Lenny Bruce would perform in or attend after his act was over. He would go have a drink at one of these other CIA-controlled clubs. Anyway, Lenny Bruce's act didn't particularly go over very well on Sunset Boulevard, so he found himself up in the porn center of Hollywood, which is called San Fernando Valley, the Valley. And that is where Lenny Bruce became himself. He just acted himself, and his act became a conversation with his audience as if they were his personal friends. And that was the beauty of the Lenny Bruce act, was he just had a conversation with you where he used a lot of foul language. And that is where he perfected the Lenny Bruce act. And without getting into any more minutia about Lenny Bruce, let's just say that he married a stripper friend, Honey Harlow. She was a stripper he found in Manila, Arkansas, and she followed him out to Hollywood way. First she followed him to New York City in 1953. Then she followed him to the West Coast and worked with he and his mother in his act at the Cup and Saucer in Los Angeles before Lenny went off onto his own. And Honey Harlow found employment at the Colony Club, which was a burlesque club in Los Angeles. All right. Anyway, like I said, Lenny ended up in Van Nuys area of San Fernando Valley working his late night adult comedy. He was arrested several times on obscenity charges, etc., etc. So what I wanted to tell you is he ends up dead in his bathroom. I guess he got divorced from Honey. They had an on-again, off-again relationship. He was found dead on the bathroom of his Hollywood home floor at 8825 Hollywood Boulevard. He had a syringe and burned bottle cap nearby, along with various narcotics paraphernalia. Of course, record producer Phil Spector, who goes on to be convicted of a murder of his own, he purchases all the death photographs so that the media won't get them. Allegedly, the cause of death on the medical exam is acute morphine poisoning. It's the same as John Belushi. That's the same as Janis Joplin. And that's the same for Lenny Bruce. And that's the same for River Phoenix. So that's 4 people, 3 men and 1 woman, that all have the same acute morphine poisoning overdose. Lenny Bruce's remains were buried at the Eden Memorial Cemetery in Mission Hills, San Fernando Valley. Okay? And his home is located, as the crow flies, 1 mile away from the Colombo murder house known as the Stall House. The Stall House is at 1635 Wood Drive. You can Google it. I think it's about 2 miles as the car drives, but as the crow flies, it's about a mile to the east. It's just above Laurel Canyon Boulevard, and Lenny Bruce's home is about the same elevation as the Stall House. The Stall House has appeared in numerous Columbo episodes, including the pilot episode with Gene Barry, who's also Jewish, and he plays the psychiatrist who brainwashes a girl to help become his alibi in the murder of his wife. There they have a murder-suicide scene at the Stall House in the pilot episode of Columbo. It later goes on to feature Jack Cassidy in Murder by the Book as being his personal residence. When he plays the character Ken Franklin, he lives in the Stall House. Again, that is fairly close to where Lenny Bruce was killed, which is directly above the Viper Room, which is also directly above where Diane Linklater was murdered at the Shoreham Towers on North Horn. It's where Connie Monty was murdered. It's where Jack Cassidy was murdered on North Kings Road, 1221 North Kings Road. It's where Sal Mineo was murdered at 8563 Holloway Drive, directly below the Lenny Bruce murder scene. So the next person we should talk about is River Phoenix, not his real name, since he was murdered by acute morphine poisoning directly below where Lenny Bruce was killed. Okay, so let's get into the story of River Phoenix, who I really never followed this story before. His real name is River Jude Bottom. That means his name is River Bottom. River Bottom. Okay? And he was married. He was the son of Arlene Phoenix. Okay? Arlene Phoenix was born in New York City, of course. She was born in the Bronx, of course. Her name is Lefkowitz. That's her maiden name. She's the daughter of, her mother's name is Margaret Lefkowitz. Her father is named Meyer Danitz, also Jewish. And, she was born Arlene Sharon Danetz, the name of her Jewish father. And she's known as a social activist, and she had 5 children: River Phoenix, Rain Phoenix, Walking Phoenix, Liberty Phoenix, Summer Phoenix. Do you see some comedy in the name selections here? First of all, none of their names are Phoenix. Their names are Bottom. But they've changed the last name to Phoenix, the rising bird from the ashes. And their first names are a joke: River, Rain, Joaquin, Liberty, Summer. This is Arlene Phoenix. She works for the CIA, okay? She was born on December 31st, 1944. 100% of her children, 5 out of 5, all find employment in Hollywood. It's because they were selected, okay? Anyway, so River Phoenix was born in Madras, Oregon. He was the first child of Arlene and John Bottom. His name is River Bottom. But now he changed his name to River Phoenix. I'm not sure when that happened. Anyway, he was an actor and performer. I don't know if he could play his instruments or not. He has 4 younger siblings: Rain, born in 72, Joaquin, born in 74, Liberty, born in 1976, Summer was born in 1978. He also has 2 paternal half-siblings because of the fact that these people cannot stay married or faithful. Anyway, so to just fast forward it here, River Phoenix, aka River Bottom, finds himself at the Viper Room on a Sunday, Halloween, October 31st, 1993, and everything's fine. He has a girlfriend. The girlfriend says he wasn't drinking. The whole time they dated, he didn't have a drinking problem. He was always sober. And she didn't think he was on any drugs, and she never saw any drugs. But he got into an altercation. She went to the ladies' room, and when she came out of the ladies' room, she saw that River Phoenix, her boyfriend, was involved with an altercation with 2 other men. And then he, shortly after that confrontation, he fell on the floor and started convulsing, whereupon he died out in the backyard of the Viper Room, away from the crowds. And a combined alcohol intoxication, drug intoxication situation. They said it was cocaine and a speedball heroin combination. That's what they said about John Belushi. So he's dead as a doornail on Halloween 1993 in the Viper Room down the hill from where Lenny Bruce died. And he's Jewish. And Lenny Bruce is Jewish. And they're both in the entertainment business. And they're both dead. One at age 23 and one at age 40. So what else can I tell you? I mean, that's pretty incriminating. Thanks for listening. Do share my videos. I am shadow banned across all my networks. I have 5 channels, and my subscriptions are steadily growing, but they should be accelerating, and they're not accelerating. And so please do what you can if you like this kind of content, because I'm not being featured anywhere. They only feature, the Russell Brands, the CIA endorsed people, like Eric Weinstein or Brett Weinstein. They're Jewish. Or you have to sort of be like Joe Rogan or Howard Stern to get those audiences. Those are mostly gifted and bestowed upon them. They didn't create those audiences on their own. That's like Jay Leno taking over The Tonight Show. NBC owns The Tonight Show, not Jay Leno, not Johnny Carson, okay? Not Steve Allen, not Jack Parr. They didn't own it. It's corporate controlled, corporate owned. And the bank owns NBC, RCA, radio frequency. Thanks for listening. Have a great day. Talk soon. Bye-bye.